11:58 p.m. Good evening, or whatever this is now. If you can hear me, I need you to stay calm, because I am barely staying calm myself, and one of us has to be the steady voice right now. I'm Ray Calloway. Most of you know me from the morning drive slot, 7 to 10, where I talk too much about baseball, and my dog, and the weather. This is not that show. This is whatever this is. And I'm going to be honest with you, because I think that's the only thing worth being tonight. At approximately 9:47 this evening, every light in Salton Creek went out at once. Not a flicker, not a surge, at once. Like someone reached down from very high up and turned the whole city off the way you'd turn off a lamp before bed. I was in the middle of reading the sponsored content block, the one for Delgado's Tire and Auto, and then there was nothing. Just the emergency generator in the basement kicking on, and this old board in front of me, and a signal that may or may not be reaching anybody at all. I've been in this booth for just over an hour now. I've tried every phone in the building. Landlines are dead, cell service is gone, the internet router is showing no connection. Our engineer, Pete Solis, went downstairs to check on the generator about 40 minutes ago and hasn't come back. I can hear him moving around down there, so I'm not worried. At least that's what I'm telling myself. What I know right now, at this exact moment, is this. The power is out across all of Salton Creek. I can see from the window on the 3rd floor of this building that the darkness extends in every direction as far as the eye can reach. There are no streetlights, there are no lit windows, there are no traffic signals. The only light out there, other than the stars, which are absolutely extraordinary by the way, more stars than I have ever seen from inside a city, are headlights, and those are moving erratically. I watched a car run a red intersection about 10 minutes ago. Another one stopped in the middle of 5th Avenue and the driver just got out and stood there looking up at the sky. I don't blame them. The sky is something else tonight. We've had power outages before. The one in January of 2019 that lasted 14 hours. The one after Hurricane Della came through and took out the substation on the east side. Those felt different. Those had a texture of inconvenience to them. This feels different in a way I can't fully articulate yet. It feels larger. It feels like the edges of it are very, very far away. Pete just came up. He's standing in the doorway right now, and I'm going to relay what he told me as accurately as I can. He says the generator is running on a full tank, which buys us somewhere between 60 and 80 hours if we're careful with what we run. He says his portable ham radio, the one he keeps in his kit in the equipment room, is picking up signals, but they're fragmented and hard to lock onto. He says one of the signals he picked up clearly, before it dissolved into static, was a broadcast out of what he thinks was the Meredith Valley area, which is about 200 miles north of us, and that broadcast was saying the same thing I'm saying. The lights went out. We don't know why. That's the honest summary. That's where we are. I want you to do something for me right now. I want you to check on the people in your immediate vicinity. The people in your house, your apartment, next door if you can safely do it. The first hour of any emergency is when confusion can turn into something worse, and a voice, a physical human voice speaking to another human, does more than you'd think to anchor people. I had a professor in college who studied disaster response, Dr. Antonella Reeves. Sharp woman, always wore this particular green cardigan. She told us once that the single greatest predictor of how well a community survives the first 72 hours of a crisis is not resources, not infrastructure, not government response. It's the strength of the existing social bonds between neighbors, people who already know each other's names, people who have already knocked on each other's doors for small reasons. Those people survive differently than isolated ones. Go knock on some doors if it's safe to do so. Tell people what frequency you're on. Tell them to find an old radio if they have one. The newer digital sets may not be working tonight. The ones that run on analog signal have a better chance. I'll be here. This transmitter is old, older than me. It was built in a time when people still understood that a radio station might someday need to keep broadcasting when everything else went quiet. Harold Messing, who built this station in 1971, was apparently a man who thought about worst cases. I've never been so grateful for someone else's paranoia in my entire life. My name is Ray Calloway. You're listening to WLST 91.3 FM, Last Light Radio, broadcasting from downtown Salton Creek. I don't know what's happening yet. I'm going to find out. I'm going to stay on this air, and I'm going to tell you everything I learn as I learn it. The stars are extraordinary tonight. I know that sounds like a strange thing to keep coming back to, but they are. They are genuinely extraordinary. The Milky Way is visible from my studio window. which I have never been able to say before in my life. Stay where you are, stay calm, tell someone you're okay. We'll figure this out together. 1:30 a.m. It's 1:30 in the morning, and I've been awake for 19 hours. I want you to know that, because I want you to know I'm human, that I'm in this with you, that I'm not sitting in some comfortable room reading from a prepared script. I'm doing what you're doing, which is sitting in the dark trying to understand what just happened to the world. Let me tell you what I've pieced together in the last 90 minutes. Pete managed to get a cleaner lock on the ham radio. We've been running it on and off to conserve battery, taking notes. The picture that's emerging is not small. That's the honest truth, and I'd rather give you honest truth than comfortable uncertainty. What we're hearing, from fragments of broadcasts scattered across what we can reach, is that the outage is not regional. It is not a grid failure in our section of the country. Every signal we're picking up, whether it's coming from the coast or from the interior, is saying the same thing. The lights went out, the phones went down, everything electronic either stopped or is behaving strangely. A man named Virgil, broadcasting on amateur frequencies from somewhere he says is outside of Copperhill, Tennessee, told us that his brother called him from a landline, the old copper wire kind hardwired into the wall, just before that line also went dead, and his brother said the same phrase twice. He said, "It's everywhere." Virgil's been on the air since before we were. He's 62 years old, he keeps bees and rebuilds vintage radios as a hobby, and tonight, those hobbies are the reason he has a voice, and other people are listening. I'm thinking about all the people right now who don't have a radio. That's the number I keep returning to. The number of people sitting in perfect silence tonight, with no information coming in, constructing worst cases in their heads, because the human mind, in the absence of information, does not default to peace. It defaults to the worst version of events it can imagine. I know that because I've been doing it myself in the spaces between broadcasting. So let me be the information. Here is what we have confirmed or can reasonably confirm. The power grid across at least the eastern half of the country is down, possibly more. Cars with newer computerized systems are not working. Older mechanical vehicles, pre-1985 or so, are reported to be functional in several accounts we've received. Hospitals that have backup generators are running, but fuel is the question, and nobody knows how long. Cell towers are down, which may be partly infrastructure and partly because the towers themselves lost power, and partly because something else happened that we don't fully understand yet. Here is what we do not know. We don't know if this was caused by something natural, something deliberate, or some combination. We don't know how long it will last. We don't know if the people who are supposed to have answers are working on this, or whether they're in the same position we are. A woman called into the station, physically walked here, came to the front door of the building, and Pete let her in. Her name is Dr. Sunita Okafor, and she's a professor of electrical engineering at Salton Creek University. She's been listening to us on a battery radio she found in the equipment room of her department. She walked 20 minutes through the dark to get here, and I want you to hear what she said, as close to her exact words as I can manage. She said that the pattern of what she's hearing, the total simultaneous failure, the way vehicles with computerized systems stopped but older mechanical ones didn't, the way digital devices are dead but this analog transmitter is alive, is consistent with one particular scenario. She used the phrase geomagnetic event. She said there had been unusual solar activity in the past week that she'd been monitoring professionally. She said she'd written a paper years ago about infrastructure vulnerability to large coronal mass ejections. She said she had thought when she wrote that paper that she was writing about a theoretical risk. She's sitting in the corner of the booth right now with a notepad and a flashlight, and she's working through calculations. I'm going to let her work. What I want to talk about for a moment, because I think it matters, is the sky. I've said it twice now, and I'll say it again. The sky tonight is something no living person in this city has ever seen from inside it. Without the light pollution of 400,000 bulbs, the atmosphere above Salton Creek is showing its actual face for the first time. The Milky Way is a physical thing. It has texture. You can see depth in it. The stars near the horizon have colors. There's a satellite or something moving slowly across the southeast, and I keep watching it, this tiny moving light that still has power somewhere, still running on whatever it was running on before tonight. Someone is up there, looking down right now. I keep thinking that. 16 people on the International Space Station looking down at a planet that has gone dark in a way it has never gone dark before in recorded history. I hope they're okay. I don't know how found it on a note card that was pinned to the bulletin board in the break room. Someone put it there months ago, and I walked past it every day without reading it. It says, in handwriting I don't recognize, "We are not the first people to sit in the dark and wonder what comes next, and we are not the last." I don't know who wrote that, but I've been thinking about it for the last 20 minutes. Stay with me. Stay on this frequency. Tell your neighbors we're here. This is Ray Calloway, WLST 91.3. It's 1:30 in the morning, and we are still broadcasting. 6:14 a.m. The sun came up about 40 minutes ago, and I want to tell you what that felt like. It came up the way it always does, which is to say it came up indifferently. Orange and quiet, pushing over the rooftops to the east, filling the streets with the kind of pale gold light that on any other morning I would have ignored completely. I've driven into work at sunrise hundreds of times and never actually looked at it. This morning I was standing on the roof of this building with Pete and Dr. Okafor, and we all just stood there watching it like we'd never seen a sunrise before. Maybe we hadn't, not really. Not the way you see something when you understand it might be meaningful. It's been 8 hours since the lights went out. I've slept for exactly none of them. The city below looks strange in the daylight. Not destroyed, not burning, at least not in any areas I can see from here. Just stopped. The cars are where they stopped last night. Some are still on. You can see exhaust from a few of the older ones whose drivers apparently figured out they were still running and pulled to the side. The intersections are starting to fill with people on foot, not panicking, walking, looking around, checking on things. That's the picture from up here. A city of people who woke up and found the world had changed and are moving through it carefully, the way you move through a room in the dark when you're not sure where the furniture is. Dr. Okafor spent the night doing calculations and making notes and talking with Pete about what his ham radio was picking up, and this morning she came and sat across from me and told me she's increasingly confident we're dealing with the aftermath of a very large geomagnetic storm. A coronal mass ejection, she called it, of a scale we may not have seen in the modern electrical era. She's careful. She says there's a lot she doesn't know, but the evidence she's working from points in that direction. I asked her what that means for us practically. She was quiet for a moment, and then she said, transformers. She said the transformers that step power down through our electrical grid, the big ones, the industrial ones, are the critical vulnerability. They take years to manufacture. There are not many spares. If enough of them are damaged or destroyed by induced currents from a geomagnetic event of this size, restoring power is not a matter of weeks. I asked her how long. She said she didn't want to guess. I told her I needed her to guess anyway. She said the range of scenarios runs from months to longer than that. I sat with that for a minute, then I came back on air. Here is what I think you need to know this morning, in practical terms, while we still have daylight and clarity. Water. Your tap may still work, or it may be losing pressure as pump systems run out of power. Fill every container you have right now. Bathtubs, pots, bottles, anything. Don't wait on this one. Water becomes the critical scarcity faster than food and faster than warmth. And once municipal pressure drops, you won't get it back from the tap. Food. What you have is what you have for the near term. Don't eat impulsively. Think about what spoils first and eat that first. Refrigerated things before frozen. Frozen before canned. If you're cooking on a gas stove, it may still work if you light it manually. If you have a grill and propane, same thing. Community. I keep coming back to this because I believe it more than anything else I've said this morning. Go find your neighbors today, not tomorrow, today. Know who has what, know who needs what. A 70-year-old woman on your block who lives alone does not have the information I'm giving you right now unless you go tell her. Her insulin may need refrigeration. She may not have eaten. She may be sitting in that house wondering if anyone is going to come. Someone should go. It should be you. A man came to the station this morning carrying a handwritten note. His name is Carlos Ibarra, and he's a nurse at Salton Creek General. He's been on shift since yesterday afternoon, and he walked here before heading back because he wanted someone to say what the hospital needs. They're on backup power, they have fuel for the generators, but they're calculating how long, and it is not a comfortable number. They need donated medications, particularly insulin and blood pressure medications, brought to the main entrance if anyone has more than they immediately need. They're setting up a triage outside the main entrance for non-critical injuries to preserve the interior for serious cases. He also said something that I want to repeat exactly. He said the nurses are holding it together. He said the doctors are holding it together. He said nobody has left their post. He looked like he hadn't slept either, and he looked like that was not going to stop him from doing his job, and I thought that was worth saying out loud so that you could hear it. There are people showing up right now. In the hardest hours, the people who are supposed to show up are showing up. I want you to remember that when the fear starts talking too loud. Pete has reached a clearer signal from a ham operator in a town called Greenfield, about 90 miles west of us. That operator says his region looks the same as ours. Dark, quiet, people emerging in the daylight. No government communication reaching them yet. He said there's a group of people on his street who gathered in someone's backyard this morning, and one woman brought her guitar, and someone else brought coffee that had been made on a camp stove, and they just sat there for a while. He said it was the most human thing he'd seen in years, even under these circumstances. Maybe especially under these circumstances. The sun is fully up now. The sky is an unremarkable blue. There are birds doing what birds do. There's a dog barking somewhere south of here with a kind of urgency that suggests his morning walk is overdue. Go outside today, check on people, share what you have. Come back to this frequency at sunset. I'll be here, we'll be here. This is Ray Calloway, Walst 91.3, still broadcasting, day 1 of whatever this is, day 3, 4:45 p.m. I'll be honest with you, I didn't plan on what I'm about to say. I had notes. I had a list of practical information that Dr. Okafor helped me prepare about water filtration and signal fires and how to treat minor wounds without a pharmacy. That's still coming. But first I need to tell you what happened this morning, because if I don't say it out loud, it's going to keep sitting in my chest. A group of men came to the station. There were 4 of them. They came in through the front entrance about 8 this morning. They were polite. That's the part that sticks with me. They were genuinely polite. They said they represented a community organization that had formed in the Creekside district, that they were coordinating resources in that part of the city, and that they believed a working radio transmitter was a community asset that should be managed collectively rather than by one person. Pete came downstairs and the 2 of us stood in the lobby and listened to them. The man doing the talking was maybe 45. Clear eyes, clean jacket even now, which I noticed. He had a specific kind of calm that I've seen before in people who are very certain about what they want and very accustomed to getting it. He said they weren't taking anything, they just wanted access. A voice on the air, a few hours a day, to broadcast their community directives. I said this station broadcasts information and music and is not a platform for any single group's directives. He smiled. He said he understood. He said they'd come back when I had more time to think about it. They left, all 4 of them. I told Pete to lock the exterior door and not open it without checking who was there first. Pete, who is 60 years old and has been an audio engineer for 35 years and has never in his professional life been asked to help barricade a radio station, did it without a word. I'm telling you this because I think you need to know it's happening. The organizations are forming. Some of them are going to be the community kitchen on 4th Street that's feeding 100 people a day using donated groceries. Some of them are going to be something else. The difference between those 2 things is not always visible from the outside in the first 48 hours. Trust people who are giving. Be careful with people who are organizing toward control. Now, the practical information. Water filtration. If you don't have stored water and you're sourcing from streams, fountains, or standing sources, you need to make it safe. Boiling is the most effective method. Bring it to a full rolling boil and keep it there for 1 minute, or 3 minutes if you're at elevation. If you can't boil, layering cloth over a container and pouring water through will remove visible debris, and then if you have any unscented household bleach, 8 drops per gallon will do meaningful disinfection. It won't remove heavy metals or chemical contamination, but it will address most biological threats. Wound care. The pharmacies are being stripped fast. Dr. Okafor reached a contact of hers, a retired surgeon named Dr. Marcus Webb who lives 6 blocks from here and has a proper medical kit. He came in yesterday and gave us a rundown. The highest priority wounds are infected ones, not fresh ones. Fresh wounds cleaned with clean water and covered will usually manage. Infected wounds with red streaking moving away from the site are the dangerous ones, and they need antibiotic treatment. If you have fish antibiotics in your home, yes, the kind from the pet store. They are chemically identical to human antibiotics, and in in this situation that matters. Dr. Webb emphasized that the dosing and identification is critical. He's volunteered to hold a medical information session at the station tomorrow at noon. Physical attendance only. Come if you need to know. Heat. Nights are getting colder. If you have a fireplace you have never used and you're thinking about it now, have someone check the flue first. A blocked flue in a house with no smoke alarms is exactly as dangerous as it sounds. Wood burning is the safest form of heat that doesn't require fuel you're likely running out of. If you're in an apartment building and you have no fireplace option, consolidating into fewer units with more people generates significant body heat. It's not comfortable. It works. Information. This is the one that keeps me up, because we've started getting reports through Pete's ham network of false broadcasts. Someone on a frequency 2 bands over from ours was broadcasting this morning, claiming to represent FEMA, claiming there was a distribution point for food and medicine at the Salton Creek Fairgrounds. Several dozen people apparently went there. The fairgrounds are closed and empty. There was nothing. I don't know if that was a deliberate lure or someone who had bad information and passed it along in good faith. Either way, people walked 3 miles in the cold for nothing. Be skeptical. Verify through multiple sources before committing to a location or a plan based on what you hear. The one thing I can tell you to trust is what you can see with your own eyes and what comes to you through people you already know. A girl came to the station today, 13 years old, name is Esperanza. She lives 4 blocks away, and she told me she's been going door to door in her neighborhood writing down what each household needs and what each household has to offer, and trying to match them up. She has a spiral notebook. She's done 23 houses. She came to ask if I would put her system on the air so other neighborhoods could copy it. I told her yes. I told her she was the most useful person I'd met in 3 days. She looked at me like that was a weird thing for an adult to say, and then she went back to her notebook. The system is simple. Go door to door with paper. 2 columns have, need, collect both. Redistribute what you can. Share the list with the next block over. 13 years old. Whatever we're going to build next, people like her are going to build it. Stay warm, stay skeptical, stay generous. This is Ray Calloway, WLST 91.3, Day 3, still here, Day 6, 9 o'clock p.m. There's a moment every night now when the city goes fully quiet. It usually happens around 2 in the morning, after whatever fires people have lit for warmth die down, after the voices stop carrying through the windows, after even the dogs stop their anxious circuits of their yards. And in that silence you can hear things you couldn't hear before. Owls. The creek 2 miles east of here running over the stones. Wind through the gaps in buildings. The creak of the old transmitter cooling down in the corner of the room. I've started staying up for it. That silence. It sounds like something that was always there underneath everything. Something we buried under 50 years of electrical hum, and now it's back. It doesn't comfort me exactly, but it means something. It means the world is still going. It's night 6. I want to take a breath from the practical advisories and the incoming reports for a minute and just talk to you, because I think we're at a specific point now that deserves acknowledgement. The shock is wearing off. The first few days, people moved through this on adrenaline. There was clarity in the emergency. A thing happened. Here is what we do now. That clarity has a certain mercy in it, but it doesn't last. What comes after the shock is the weight of the situation settling into its actual dimensions. The understanding that this is not a story with a known ending. That the help is not arriving on a specific truck at a specific time. That the life you were living 10 days ago is not waiting for you somewhere nearby. I've seen it in the people who come to the station. In the first days, they were purposeful. They had questions. They wanted to help. Now some of them are quieter. Some of them have an expression I recognize from the one time I went through something hard, years ago, when I lost someone. It's the expression of people who have put down the immediate task and looked up and seen the full distance. That expression is not weakness. It is the most honest thing a person can show you. I've been doing this broadcast for 6 days, and I need to tell you that some of what I've been saying has been easier to say than it was to believe. When I told you in the first night to stay calm, part of me was telling myself. When I said find your neighbors and check on each other, part of me was trying to believe that would be enough. I don't know if it's enough. I don't know what enough looks like here yet. What I do know is that the things keeping us functional right now are not the things I would have predicted a month ago. It's not the infrastructure that survived. It's not the government communications that never came. It's the woman on Pine Street who turned her garage into a community kitchen. It's the retired biology teacher who figured out that the creek water north of the old mill is cleaner than south of it because of the way the rocks filter it, and then walked to 6 different neighborhoods to tell people. It's the teenage boys from the apartment complex on Grover Avenue who appointed themselves runners and now carry messages between the station and the hospital every morning and evening and take nothing for it. It's Esperanza, who now has a team of 8 kids working her door-to-door system across the entire South District. It's Pete, who has not left this building in 6 days, who sleeps on a cot in the equipment room, who could have gone home to his wife and his dogs and his own comfortable space and chose to stay here because he believes this signal matters. These are the people holding it together, not systems, people. Dr. Okafor received word today through Pete's network that a research facility in the Midwest, one with significant backup power and independent communication capability, has confirmed what she suspected. Geomagnetic storm, large coronal mass ejection. She's been right from the beginning. The confirmation changes nothing practical, but I notice it matters to people to understand what happened. The mind needs a shape for things. Shapeless disaster is harder to carry than named disaster. I want to address something I've been hearing about through the courier network that other neighborhoods have been building. Rumors. The specific kind that come in a vacuum and fill it up with fear. I've heard 3 in the last 2 days that I can directly contradict. The first, that the water supply is contaminated by chemical runoff from the industrial district, and you shouldn't drink any local water. This is not confirmed, but Dr. Okafor says there's no chemical plant in this region whose failure would produce that kind of contamination in the water table this quickly. Boil your water, don't stop boiling it, but don't stop drinking it. The second that, there is a government quarantine being established around the city, and no one will be allowed to leave. There is no evidence for this. The courier riders have been going in and out freely. The roads out of Salton Creek are passable on foot and by pre-1985 vehicles. The third, that this is permanent, that the world will never come back, that whoever needed to fix this failed and we are now in a different permanent state. I can't tell you that's false. I can't promise you the lights come back. But permanent is a long word, and we are 6 days in. Humanity has come back from things before, things that also felt, in the middle of them, like permanent states. Hold on to that. The silence at 2 in the morning is worth something. It is the sound of a world continuing. This is Ray Calloway, WLST 91.3, Night 6, still broadcasting. Thank you for being there. Day 11, 2:30 p.m. Someone came in from outside the city today. Her name is Adrienne Costas. She's a paramedic who's been working her way back from a training conference 3 states over, covering roughly 400 miles by a combination of borrowed horse, salvaged bicycle, and long stretches of walking. She left the day after the event. It took her 10 days to get here. She sat down in the booth and drank 2 full glasses of water and didn't say anything for about a minute. Then she looked at me and said, "It's different out there." I asked her how. She said some places are doing better than you'd think, and some places are doing worse than you could imagine. And the difference is not money, or resources, or even luck. The difference is whether people decided, early on, to act collectively or individually. She said she passed through one town, maybe 3,000 people, small agricultural area that had formed a functioning council within 48 hours, established work rotations, set up a rationing system, and was operating with something close to order by day 3. She said people were scared, but they were scared together, and that changed the texture of it completely. She also passed through a larger town, closer to 15,000 people before the event, where the first few days of resource competition had hardened into something territorial and mean. She said she moved through quickly and didn't stop, and she didn't go into detail about what she saw, and I didn't push her. She did say one thing about that town that I want to pass on. She said the people who were suffering most in that situation were not the ones without resources. They were the ones who had resources and were spending all of their energy defending them from other people instead of using them to build something. She said she saw a man with enough food to last 3 months, sitting alone in a locked house losing his mind. She said isolation is the other emergency that nobody announces. Pete's network has been getting clearer as operators across the region calibrate their equipment and find ways to extend range. The picture is large and it is mixed. The patterns Adrian described match what we're hearing from other places. The communities that turn toward each other early are building things. Real things, trade networks, medical sharing agreements, courier systems more sophisticated than ours. One group about 60 miles northeast has an actual working council with rotating representation from 8 different neighborhoods, and they've been remarkably functional. The communities that turned inward or fell into the control of whoever grabbed power first are not doing as well. Not all of them, but the pattern is there. I want to say something about the question I get asked the most. People come to the station or send notes with the runners, and the question, underneath all the other questions, is always this: is it going to get better? I've been careful about how I answer that because I don't know. And saying I don't know feels insufficient when someone is standing in front of me with that look on their face. But I talked to Dr. Okafor about it this morning. We've had a lot of conversations in 11 days that I don't think either of us could have anticipated having. She told me something that I've been sitting with all day. She said human civilization has rebuilt from catastrophic collapses before. Not bounced back from them, rebuilt from them. The rebuilds didn't look like what came before. They were different. Sometimes better in certain ways, worse in others, but alive. She said the relevant question is not whether it gets better, but what we preserve and carry forward into the next shape of things. She said, "What are you broadcasting for?" I didn't have an answer immediately. I think I have one now. I'm broadcasting because information is not a luxury and it is not a weapon. It is the shared understanding of our condition, and you cannot make good decisions without it. I'm broadcasting because people in the dark imagine the worst, and people who can hear a clear voice are slightly less in the dark. I'm broadcasting because Pete is sleeping on a cot in the equipment room, and Adrian Costas walked 400 miles through a changed country, and Esperanza has 42 volunteers now running her information network, and all of that deserves to be witnessed and said aloud. I'm broadcasting because that's the thing I know how to do, and in a situation like this, the thing you know how to do is the thing you owe. A few updates from the station and from the network. The community kitchen on 4th Street is feeding 260 people a day. They need volunteers for morning prep between 6 and 9. Show up if you can. Dr. Webb is running his medical information sessions every Tuesday and Thursday at noon. He's now trained 40 people in basic wound care and infection identification. He's asking if anyone with pharmacy knowledge will come in. Not medications, knowledge. The kind stored in a human brain, not a bottle. The runner's system is looking for 3 more people for the East District route. The work is physical, and it is important. Ask for Dominguez at the station entrance. And one more thing. A small thing, but I think it matters. Last night, someone left a guitar on the steps of this building, with a note that said, for the radio, no name. We played it last night for 2 hours after the information broadcast. Pete played, and he's better than he's let on for 35 years of being an audio engineer. Someone outside the building heard it and knocked on the door and asked if they could come in and listen. Pete said yes. By the end of the second hour, there were 11 people in the lobby of this building listening to one man play guitar in the dark. It was 11 people, and it was the most alive room I've been in 11 days. Bring your instruments if you have them. We're playing again tonight. This is Ray Calloway, Welst 91.3, Day 11. Day 20, 8 o'clock p.m., 20 days. I want to let that number sit for a moment because I don't think any of us, in the first hour of the first night, believed we would still be in this 3 weeks later. The brain doesn't think in those terms when the crisis is fresh. It thinks in hours. It thinks, surely by morning, surely by the end of the week. The mind keeps pushing the resolution point forward by increments, and then one day you realize you've stopped doing that. You've stopped waiting for the resolution point. You've just started living in this. That is both a sign of human adaptability and one of the saddest things I know how to say. I'm going to be direct with you tonight about some things that are harder to say than what I've said before. We've lost people, not to violence, mostly, to the things that were always going to happen without the medical infrastructure to prevent them. An elderly man in the North District died of complications from untreated diabetes. 2 children in the East End, waterborne illness. A woman at the hospital who was in her 3rd trimester and needed a surgical delivery, and the equipment failed at the wrong moment. There are more, and I don't have all the numbers because not all the numbers are findable, but they exist, and they need to be named, at least in this general way, because pretending we are only experiencing inconvenience is a lie I am no longer willing to broadcast. We are surviving. But surviving has a cost, and the cost is not distributed evenly. The people who are paying most are the same people who paid most before. The old, the sick, the very young. The ones who had nothing in reserve when the event hit. The ones who were isolated before any of this happened. I don't say this to take the hope out of you. I say this because the truth is what this station is for, and because the people who are paying that cost deserve to be acknowledged. There are also things happening that I did not anticipate and that I find genuinely remarkable. The trade network has grown to include 31 communities within a 100-mile radius. It uses couriers, horse relays, and in 2 cases small boats along the river. It has established informal standards of exchange, specific categories of goods with understood relative values. Not money, values. The kind of valuation that happens when people negotiate in good faith with shared stakes. Someone somewhere in that network, a woman named Portia, who was a logistics coordinator before all of this, has created a routing map that is more sophisticated than anything I would have thought possible with paper and pencil and the combined knowledge of the people she's spoken to. It shows safe routes, it shows resources, it shows where not to go and why. It is updated weekly via courier and distributed to 20 communities who each make copies and distribute further. We are reinventing systems, slowly, imperfectly, but reinventing them. The question of governance is the one nobody is comfortable with yet. In small groups, it's manageable. 12 people who know each other can make decisions by consensus, and it mostly works. But the city as a whole, 40,000 people now, down from the pre-event population, 40,000 people trying to share resources and manage territory and resolve disputes, that requires something more formalized, and no one wants to be the first to say it. There was a meeting 2 days ago at the high school gymnasium. 400 people in the bleachers. 3 different neighborhood councils, each with a different idea about how things should be organized. It went for 3 hours. Nothing was decided. But 3 hours of 400 people arguing about governance without violence is not nothing. That's something. That's the beginning of something. I've been thinking about what comes after all this. Not in terms of restoration, of things going back to the way they were. I've let that version of the future go. But in terms of construction, what gets built. Dr. Okafor believes, and I think she's right, that some form of power generation will return in the medium term. Not the grid we had, something more local, more distributed, more intentionally resilient. The lesson of this event is being learned in the most expensive possible classroom. What I think about is what we carry forward from this. The things we learned in the dark that we didn't know we knew. That community is infrastructure. That information is not separate from survival but woven into it. That the people who hold things together in the worst hours are rarely the people who were powerful before. That a 13-year-old girl with a notebook can run a system that keeps a district fed better than a lot of official plans I've seen. I want to play you something tonight. Not recorded music, we don't have that. Live music. Because we've been doing it every night for the past week, and I think it's become important in a way I didn't expect. There's something about music, about the act of one person making it and other people being present for it, that does something words can't quite do. It doesn't solve anything, but it reminds you that you are a human being and not just an organism trying to maintain homeostasis, which is what extreme circumstances can reduce you to if you let them. Pete is going to play. A woman named Celestine, who has been coming in every evening and who, it turns out, sang professionally for 15 years before taking a job in accounting, is going to sing. And a 14-year-old boy named Omar, who showed up last week with a violin, is going to play whatever he wants. After the music, I'll be back with updates from the network and whatever information Dr. Okafor has from her contacts in the research community. But first, music. This is Ray Calloway, Wells T 91.3, Last Light Radio. Day 20. We are still here. You are still here. That is not nothing. That is everything. Day 31, 5:50 a.m. The lights came back at 5:47 this morning. Not everywhere. Not all at once. Not the way I used to turn on a lamp without thinking. They came back the way dawn comes back, incrementally, block by block, starting in the east side near the old substation, where a crew of engineers and technicians has been working with whatever replacement parts they could source for the past 12 days. I was watching from the roof when it happened. One building, then the block around it, then the blocks around that. A slow, warm expansion of light moving westward, like something waking up. I cried. I'm going to say that plainly. I sat down on the roof of this building, which I have been sleeping on when the nights are warm enough because I can't stop watching the sky, and I cried for about 4 minutes. Then I came back downstairs and turned on this microphone. I need to be careful about what I say now, because the lights are on in one part of the city and not in others, because the grid is fragile and the engineers have said so clearly, this is partial, provisional, and it requires more work before it is stable, because the water treatment plant is not fully online, because the supply chains that keep this city fed are not restored, because 31 days of emergency living have created new arrangements, new dependencies, and new vulnerabilities that didn't exist before. This is not the end of what we've been in. It is the beginning of what comes next, and I don't want to pretend those are the same thing. But there is light in the east side of Salton Creek this morning. It has been 31 days since I stood at this window watching the transformer explosions walk across town in a cascade of blue-white light. 31 days since Pete started sleeping on that cot in the equipment room. 31 days since Dr. Okafor walked 20 minutes through dark streets with a flashlight and a notebook and changed the quality of my understanding of what was happening to us. 31 days since Esperanza knocked on the station door with her spiral notebook and 43 vacant house visits logged, and a system that has since grown to encompass most of the city's south and east neighborhoods. I've been broadcasting for 31 days. Not always well, not always correctly. There were 3 things I said in the first week that turned out to be wrong. I corrected them on air as soon as I knew. There were people I couldn't help, questions I couldn't answer, nights when I felt like I was holding a flashlight in a very large cave and the light wasn't going far enough. But I was here. And you were there. And that kept meaning something. I want to tell you some things that are true now, on day 31, that were not true on day 1. Esperanza's information network has been formalized into something called the Community Registry. It covers the entire city. It has a physical office in the library, which reopened as a community center on day 8, and has not closed since. Eleanor Hayes, the head librarian, runs it with the same efficient authority she runs everything else. The registry knows where the resources are, where the needs are, and how to connect them. It is not perfect, it is functional. Someone is already talking about how to keep it running after the emergency framing falls away, because the thing Esperanza understood before most adults did is that this kind of knowledge infrastructure is valuable always, not just in disasters. Dr. Marcus Webb's medical training program has certified 64 people in first aid and wound care. He has drafted a proposal for a neighborhood health worker program that 3 of the district councils have already agreed to fund through the collective resource pool that the trade network established. He is 67 years old and has not taken a day off in a month. And when I asked him last week why, he looked at me like it was a strange question. The trade network now has a name. People started calling it the thread, which I like because it suggests both connection and fragility, both of which are accurate. It covers 43 communities within 150 miles. Portia's routing maps are on the 3rd revision. She's training 2 assistants. There is a proposal, still being debated, to establish a small permanent office for the thread's coordination, once enough infrastructure is restored to make that practical. The community kitchen on 4th Street fed people every day for 31 days. Every day. They served an average of 300 meals a day by the 3rd week. When I asked the woman who runs it, a retired school teacher named Marguerite, how they did it, she said, "We ran out of things to say no with, so we said yes instead." I think about that a lot. There are things we lost that are not coming back, people. That is the weight that doesn't get light. The 31 days contained deaths that the 30 days before them would not have. The distribution was unjust, as distributions in disasters always are. That has to be carried. I don't think it should be talked away or softened or framed into meaning prematurely. There are also things we found that we didn't know we had. That's the other weight, not lighter, just different. Pete is asleep on the cot. I'm going to let him sleep. He's earned it more than anyone I can name. Dr. Okafor went home 2 days ago to check on her apartment and called in a report from a neighbor's working landline, and her voice on the phone sounded exactly the same as she sounded standing in the doorway of this studio on night 1, careful, clear, looking at what's in front of her without flinching. I'm going to keep broadcasting today and tomorrow, and after that, I don't know, we'll figure it out, but not because the emergency requires it in the way it did on day 1. because I think there is still value in a clear voice saying what is true and what is known and what is still uncertain. Because the work of building things that survive isn't done in 31 days, and the community that formed itself in the dark needs to keep talking in the light. The stars are still up there even now, even with the eastern part of the city glowing again. They're fainter. The light pollution is coming back, a little at a time. I'm going to miss the sky, the way it was when we could see all of it. I think I'll miss quite a few things about the dark. This is Ray Calloway, Whilst 91.3 FM, Last Light Radio, Day 31. The sun is coming up. We made it to the light. Stay with us. We're not done yet. We've barely started.